Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. For some reason, I'm not laughing at the song, although I find it very funny. For some reason, the monitor that we have here in the studio is on a delay. So I'm actually seeing the things that I did a while ago, which is really distracting.
It's extremely distracting.
So I'm going to mostly just ignore it. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We're live, or at least live on some sort of delay. It's March 9th, 2008. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to open up the phone lines earlier today. So for those of you who are watching after the fact or fast forwarding through announcements, who wanted to wait a half hour till the topic was over, you don't have to do that. Just as soon as I get through the announcements, we'll go ahead and have the phone number up and start taking live or slightly delayed calls. Not sure which. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road beginning at around 11, except for the first Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center, located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. And the second Sunday of the month is also the board meeting, which was this morning, although the time change really kind of messed everybody up.
Yeah, it threw me off for a loop too.
So I don't know if it just wasn't publicized as much or if I was distracted by other things from this weekend, but so we'll figure out what's going on and I'll talk to the board, but none of you guys care about what's going on at the board meeting, so let's get to the rest of the announcements real quick. In addition to the Sunday morning activities in this television program, the ACA also hosts a number of social programs throughout the week, including Atheist Happy Hour, every Thursday at the Dog and Duck Pub at 17th and Guadalupe, beginning at around 7 o'clock. The lecture series, as I already mentioned, and after this program's over, we've been going to El Arroyo on 5th Street. So the show's on till about 4:30. We get down there around 5 or so, and we're usually there until 7 o'clock. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. You don't have to be a member to attend. We don't have any requirements like that. As long as you're not coming down to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, you're welcome to join us. In general, we like to, have people come down who want to have good conversations. I don't really care if you're a theist or an atheist, an agnostic, a secular humanist, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Christian, whatever you want. One of the things that we end up talking about on the show is religious issues, obviously, but we're open to talking about all kinds of things. So the phone number is going to go up in just a moment, and you'll be able to call and talk about whatever's on your mind, and we'll talk about a few things while we wait for some calls as well. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Non-Prophets. That's PROPHETS. You can go to the website on your screen, nonprofitsradio.com, for more information about how to download the podcast and how to listen live. It's live every other Saturday from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Central, and we run an IRC chat service in conjunction with the show where those who are listening live can talk amongst themselves and contribute on occasion to the discussion that we're having. The purpose of this show is to kind of answer questions, provide an outlet for atheists in the Austin area to interact with the public, correct misperceptions about what atheism is, who atheists are, what do they believe, what don't they believe, but also to address the claims of religious people. And we're interested in what you believe, why you believe it, and why you think anybody else should. And if you have your own beliefs and you don't think that they're justifiable to anybody else, great, kudos. I tend to kind of base my decisions on what's demonstrable about the reality that we actually share, that's independently confirmable, that is things that we can come to agreement on about what is truth, what exists to the best extent that we can possibly know it. In addition to the nonprofits and the various other activities, you can also visit the ACA website at www.atheist-community.org. There's more information up there, including a frequently asked questions section. If you don't get through on the telephone today or you don't want to, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, most of the co-hosts, most of the people behind the scenes. We can't promise to answer every email, but we do answer quite a bit of them. And any feedback, comments, questions, criticisms, please feel free to forward them that way. If we make mistakes, we'll be happy to correct them. I, of course, have never made a mistake ever in the entire history of the show, so that's not true. Once or twice, somebody's emailed with a correction, and actually, there's a correction from Russell's show.
Yeah,
was it last week?
I believe it was last week, actually. Yeah.
He was talking about anti-Semitism, and he commented about Mel Gibson's drunken tirade against the Jews, and he made the mistake of saying it came before the Passion of Christ,
Yeah.
when actually it came after the Passion of Christ movie was done. So there's a correction. We were wrong about something. I'm sure there's other things that we've been wrong about. I'm just not so sure that people have actually bothered to tell us. And
occasionally we catch them on the show. We do have our crack team of researchers behind the scenes.
Well, we end up
every minute
talking,
and typing away and furiously searching the internet and scouring for the facts. And
Yeah.
they'll pop up every now and then.
and we end up having discussions amongst ourselves after the show, and then on email
Yes.
lists. And there are some things that are minor and not worth correcting because the message was out there. But what the big things are that I don't want to misrepresent what anybody actually believes, which is why when a caller comes in and tells me that they believe in a God, I start by asking questions. We had a caller last week who was asking, why do you always answer these, address these issues with questions and things? And in fairness, this has bugged me. It didn't bug anybody else. As a matter of fact, some people cheered. I got to a point where I actually just put him on hold and told him to shut up. And I usually prefer not to get to the point where I'm saying shut up.
Of course.
I prefer that we handle it differently. So maybe I handled that bad, and if so, then I apologize. But there were some problems with that discussion. One of them being there was this implication that asking questions is not as good as pretending to have answers. He was like, when you ask religious people what they believe or why they believe something, they'll give you answers. And usually it's like, an appeal to some ancient book or something. Well, I'm not convinced that those are actually answers. It may be a reason, it may be an excuse, it may be whatever justification they come up with. The problem was when I asked him why he believed what he believed, his answer was that, it was just the research has been done and the proof's out there, God exists. And when I asked, more,
specifics,
wouldn't answer it.
Of course.
And the thing that I kind of discovered after the show that I wish I'd have said last week, so I'll say it this week, is given the choice between being the guy who's accused of asking questions or providing pretend answers, I'll take the former.
Yeah.
And I'd much prefer unanswered questions to unquestionable answers. And that's what religion tends to offer. Unquestionable answers, dogma. We know that God created everything. I'll talk a little bit about the pub crawl that happened and some comments that were made in discussions. But one of the guys actually commented that God is the answer to this particular question of why does the universe exist, and his justification was because we don't have any other answer and that one fits. Well, holy crap! And I asked him. I said, what that means isn't that you found an answer. It means that you found something that you think fits, and so you're not going to continue to investigate. And he, I kid you not, looked me dead in the eye and said, once I've come to the answer that God did it, why would I have to investigate any further? Well, congratulations. I'm glad you got an answer that satisfies you, and I'm happy that people like Copernicus and Galileo decided not to follow in your footsteps.
That would have definitely left us in the dark ages
Yeah.
there. God did it. I'm satisfied.
We're living on a flat earth, and the sun's going around in circles, and God can stop it. Well, Joshua can stop it with God's help. But
so why do we need to go any further?
God
will provide.
The last actual announcement is something I meant to get to earlier. Richard Dawkins will be in town here in Austin on March 19th, 7 p.m. at the Hogg Auditorium. Seats are first come, first serve, but we have been able to set aside some seats.
Yeah.
So you can email us, and I'll try and put you in contact with the person, setting everything up, and we'll see about saving some seats for people. So,
and also a quick note to go back and. Are you finished with that announcement?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to asking questions and why do you ask questions rather than give answers? Very often, and it's something that you learn doing the show, is that if somebody calls in and says, "Here's my position now," answer my question. If we get too quickly into answering, 5 minutes into it, let's say, well, that's not what I believe anyway. So, why are you arguing against this when that's not my point? My point is blah, 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 blah. And so if we just ask those questions and get it out of the way first, we're not going to waste anybody's time.
Yeah, there's a handful of kind of precepts or conditions that I put on myself. Number one, you get to define what you mean by God, or whatever your claim is. It may not be God, it may be some other supernatural nonsense, or whatever. You get to define it, because I don't want to be arguing against somebody else's belief, and then
Yeah.
you say, that's not what I'm talking about. The other reason for asking questions is so that we can get to a point of clarity about what it is that we're talking about, both in the definition and in your explanation, because people use language slightly differently. And you may have a different definition of faith than I do. My definition ends up placing faith in the position of being nonsense, not even real. It's utter nonsense that's no good way to make a decision. You may have a completely different definition of faith, and I want to know what it is so that we're talking kind of on the same level, in the same terms.
Yeah.
And the other big reason is so many of the arguments, I'm chuckling. I'm going to chuckle. Sorry, it's not meant to be insulting. So many of the arguments for the existence of God, or arguments in opposition to certain scientific knowledge, are based on such gross misperceptions and fallacies that I find it's more useful to ask a question early rather than let them start with a fallacious argument and build up to a point where, and thus we've demonstrated God exists, and then I have to say, but let's go all the way back to the beginning because this is where you made a mistake.
Yeah.
You can construct a logically valid argument that supports the idea that God exists. It's just not a logically sound argument, and most people don't even know the difference between the two.